Welcome to another episode of the Stories That Sell podcast. And today I have a special guest here, my good friend Mariah Gates, the owner of Accelerated Automation. Mariah, thank you so much for being here and hopping on this episode today.
Yes, thank you for having me. It's a pleasure. I'm excited. I have no idea what we're going to talk about, so I'm really excited because it'll be fun.
Yeah, got to keep you on your toes.
I know
So,
you're good at that.
all right, the first thing I want to talk about is like your origin story. Okay. And so before we even get into accelerated automation and your insurance career that led into accelerated automation, before business, before success, I want to know, like, Mariah Gates, who were you growing up, and like what shaped the way that you visualize the world today that we live in, because it's obviously much different than the one we started with when we were growing up.
Oh my gosh, yeah, right? Growing up in the 90s. Those are the good days. We're trying to raise our kids like it's the 90s. It's not working out very well. But so growing up, yeah, so I grew up in a lower middle class, maybe like upper low class family. My parents were cashiers at Safeway for their entire careers, had good, stable union jobs. I have two sisters, and we grew up on a little 5-acre farm in Washington State. So lots of rain and gray, but also a lot of like animals I grew up with. So we had cows and pigs and horses and dogs and cats and all these things. So I'm very much a country girl at heart, and even how I live today, riding horses and whatnot is my passion. So grew up with two sisters. I'm a middle child. So if that tells you anything about me,
I'm a middle
just
child
from
too.
the yeah. So we all know what that comes with. But in like school growing up, I really had a hard time fitting in with other kids, and I didn't know this until after high school. But I guess I had a reputation for being like snooty, and I didn't understand that because I always felt very out of place with my peers because I think I'm an old soul. Like I was born 30 is how I kind of joke about it, and my daughter is actually the same way. She's like the things that my classmates were doing, how they would play. And then in high school, how, the drama of high school and the dating and the cliques and all these things, I always just thought it was so silly. And I didn't really participate. So I had a small group of friends. I definitely have never had like a big, wide network of friends because I don't like drama. I'm very, for the most part, to myself, when it comes to like things going on in my life. I'm way vocal on social media because I've kind of had to be, and I actually love the platform after I learned how to, utilize it properly. But as a kid, I was a daddy's little girl. I was a farm girl. I was in my rubber boots, running around playing in the hay. Literally, hey, we had a hay barn. Out fishing, lots of camping, and just a lot of family time. I have two wonderful parents who just poured their entire lives into us girls. And the three of us, my sisters are very successful. My older sister is a senior director at Travelers Insurance. She's a bigwig there. And my little sister is a officer and a helicopter pilot in the Marine Corps. And so we grew up with loving, supportive parents who used to tell us, you can be the president if you want. By the way, I would never, ever want that job. That sounds like the worst job in the country. But that's what they would tell us. So we never thought we couldn't do things. And I just grew up, I didn't party. I went to one party in high school and they were doing drugs. And I was so scared to get caught that I left and went to my boyfriend's house, who happens to now be my husband. So I've just kind of always like followed the rules and kept my head down. And I don't like drama and those types of things. I was just born that way. And it used to make me feel very uncomfortable in social settings because I was a little counterculture. But now in the world that we live in today, I'm very glad that I'm more counterculture.
That's
That's kind of who
that's
I am.
awesome, and that kind of makes so much sense. Because I look at your personality, and obviously, like, I've been following you for a while now, and we've just recently, I'd say probably in the last year, maybe like started
Yeah.
like connecting with each other. Um, and I was always like, man, interesting personality. Like I couldn't get a grasp on your personality, um, which like drew me even more into you because I'm like, I need to know who Mariah Gates is because everyone knows who she is, and I can't figure her personality out. She's not super outgoing on Facebook like some people are, right? But very very business oriented, very professional, and it's just something that you kind of don't really see in our industry too much. You see it here and there, but for the most part, you don't see it on Facebook like that. So it's interesting to get to to hear that part of it, and I thank you for sharing that. Now, doing a little bit of research on you, you spent what, 2 decades, I think it was, in like sales and finance.
Yeah, so I my first like sales job was, I guess, when I was a waitress. You're trying to upsell and sell your customers. But I got started in banking. That was my first role in finance, and I worked at Wells Fargo. My first job there was a bank teller. I moved up very quickly and then left that company because of a very toxic culture, which that company still struggles with, and went to JP Morgan Chase. I really, really enjoyed that organization until basically my last year. I ended up getting a senior leader who just nothing was ever good enough for her, and it was really stressful to work under. And that's when I got recruited to insurance. But I spent just under, it was like 9 years and 8 months or something like that in the banking industry, retail side. So dealing with the general public, doing lending. I was a commercial business banker for a year, so was my first exposure to business ownership, because I don't have any of that in my family. I didn't grow up with it. I mentioned my parents had like good union jobs. Like, we were taught, get a union job, put in your 30 years. That's life.
Doesn't
And
exist
I was
anymore.
like, that sounds horrible. Like, I don't want that at all. My parents had the same job their whole careers. Like, and that was great for them. It's just not what I wanted. So that was about 9 years, almost 10 years in banking. And I got recruited to insurance because the corporate structure, my kids were little, they were 2 and 3. I was never there. Nothing I ever did was good enough, even though I was always a top performing branch. And I was miserable, and life is too short. I watched my parents be pretty miserable in their careers, their entire career, for my entire life. They were miserable in it till the day they retired. And I did not want that. So I really, really grateful for my time in banking. I learned a ton. Corporate training, well, I mean, it'll teach you a lot fast. They flew me all over the country. I got to go to like 6 different states for corporate training over my time with Chase, and I learned a lot. I'm very grateful, but it wasn't the environment I wanted to stay in forever.
Okay. And what drew you into banking? How'd you even get into it in the first place? I know that you came from.
Well, I was a waitress at Applebee's because that was the only chain restaurant in my tiny little town. There was 35 people at my
It's a
graduating
good
high school.
chain.
So I like a little town, right? It was like 14,000 people in my whole town. Worked at Applebee's. I was a waitress. Of course, we didn't have benefits, a lot of like late nights and a very hard job. And one of my coworkers got a job as a bank teller, and she's like, we have health insurance. I'm like, you do? I'm going to apply there. And that's why I started, because, I was young, I was a teenager, and that's how I got started in banking and really enjoyed it. I was actually going to college when I was a waitress to be a nurse, and I did my CNA. When I was a kid, I wanted to be a doctor. I wanted to be a pediatrician. I love kids. And I was like, okay, I'm going to be a nurse. I don't want to go to school for 8 years. And I did my clinicals and like kind of got to practice some of the nursing things. And I was like, ew, like, this is just not for me. I have so much respect, and I'm so grateful for people who can do it, but I did not have the stomach for it. So when I got into finance and that end of the world, it fit a lot better for my personality.
And so as you get out of banking and you start transitioning into farmers, what did owning your farmers agency, well, first off, how long did you own your farmers agency for? And then what did owning your farmers agency kind of teach you about yourself that you didn't expect?
So I went from banking straight to owning an agency. By the way, I highly do not recommend that. You should work at an agency first so you know what you're getting into. But I did spend about 6 months trying to figure out if this is what I wanted to do, and met with a lot of other agents that were farmers agents, tried to do my due diligence, get a good idea of what I was getting into, and then quit my job and became a scratch agent. So I had kind of 3 agencies over like 9 years. So the reason I say that is because I started scratch with farmers. So they call it scratch because you have nothing and you're broke and you're scratching for every single sale. And I did really well. I broke our district record for the career timeline. I did it the fastest and hit our blue vase, which is our life insurance sales. So like, I was doing really good, and they gave me an agency. The agent was terminated for contract violation for commingling client funds. Big no, don't do that. And that agent had bought the agency just a year prior, and he was very absent, and it was struggling. So I had like my scratch agency where everything was me, right? I had one part-time employee. I was trying to build revenue. And then I got that other agency that they gave me, had to fire everybody, had to remodel the office like in a weekend. We actually had to kick the agent out. He wouldn't leave. It was the weirdest thing. And then I staffed that agency up, got it up to like 3 employees there, and ultimately sold that agency. I, like most business owners, have, a little bit of like ADHD. And so once I kind of have something down, I get a little bored. It's just part of my personality, which is why tech is a great place for me because you can never get
Never
bored.
get bored.
Never. It's impossible. 7 years, I'm definitely not bored. But I got a little disengaged with my agency. Like, I'm not going to lie, writing auto and home, I didn't have a broad view of it. I was a brand new business owner. I really was still in the day to day, answering questions about billing and writing policies. And I wanted to run a business. I didn't want to be like a glorified producer. And so I just started getting disengaged and uninterested. And so obviously, like, our production reflected that. My staff felt it as well. And I ultimately sold the agency and went to work for Allstate for a very short period of time, like 3 months, under another past Farmers agent. His name was Jim Hammer. He left Farmers Insurance and went to Allstate as a financial advisor. And I kind of followed him, found out quickly that I did not like working under him. He treated me like his assistant, which I was not. And so that was a very short blip. And then my family and I decided to move to Idaho for, like, overall, just like political and cultural and belief reasons. We wanted somewhere that fit better with our, and we moved to Idaho, and I was given an agency. So Farmers Insurance actually seeded me 2 agencies because I was able to run them very well. I was a high producing agent, not in today's world of high producing agents. We weren't writing $1 million in premium or anything like that. That's happening today. But we were always in the top 10%, always toppers and a good agency. So they gave me a second agency in Idaho. And that is where things really started developing for me as a business owner. Prior to that, I was a very, like, stereotypical, I would say, insurance agent, like, me and a couple people. I looked at it as like a commission. I didn't run it like a business. I wasn't investing in my people. And I learned while I was an agent in Idaho how to do that differently.
Okay. So owning an agency, I started an agency from scratch too, sold mine in 2021. And I think every insurance agent, I think every business owner at some point or another runs into like there has to be a fucking better way to do this. Like, so what was your, right? Like, I think that's kind of how your business that you currently have probably came about. It's how mine did with ClickRush. So I'm curious, what was like a specific moment for you where you were like, there has to be a better way to do this?
So, I got the agency in Idaho. They had been losing premium. They had lost like 50,000 in premium in like 60 days. And the agent was really disengaged. They had unlicensed staff. They were actually breaking the law left and right after I got in there and realized they were committing insurance fraud. The agent had like 3 E&O claims in like 5 years, and it was a disaster. So we had a lot of work to clean up the agency and staff it. That was really hard. I didn't know anybody here. But ultimately, as I was going through that process, I stumbled upon in Facebook. I know Facebook groups get like a lot of hate from some people, but they can be pretty pivotal, pivotal in your career if you get the right group and the right people that are talking in there. So there was somebody that was sharing about this marketing program called Fully Covered, and Fully Covered was my first exposure to like kind of the independent agent channel, because I was just in my little, farmers ecosystem. I didn't know what else was out there. So when I got in Fully Covered, those were independent agents, and I learned that marketing program, which was running ads on Facebook. And I started learning about some of the technology that they had to use to run these ads. And I was like, oh, this is so much easier, so much better. They had a very rudimentary CRM back then for our leads. And then through that same group, I stumbled on Agency Zoom. And I had always been an operations person working in banking. I mean, if you've ever been through a bank audit, like, I'll say a little prayer for you, and you should get a cuddle and a pat on the back, because they are the most stressful thing I've ever been through. But in a bank, everything has a process and a procedure and an initial and a check mark. And you're dealing with so much money. So it's very organized, and insurance is not like that. And I was always trying to build that in my agency. We had a company manual, policies and procedures, because I was used to that from banking. And then you own your own business and you're like, oh, there's no policies or procedures for anything. So I was always trying to create them. But to get my team to follow them was really, really hard. And it's written, it's somewhere, but they have to reference it, and they all kind of start doing things their own way, and you can't really tell who's doing what. And so I was just constantly in this grind where I couldn't get the lift. So when I stumbled upon, Fully Covered, first of all, helped us lift a lot. We wrote a lot of business from that program. And then when I got Agency Zoom, I was like, now this is when this was early on. It was one pipeline. There was no service features. It was just a sales pipeline with like campaigns. That was it. So it was very, very basic. But I saw a way to structure my policies and procedures in a visual way that I could track, So I got this sucker. I hired like three more producers. So I had a team of 5 at the time, which I couldn't afford, but I was investing in. And I told them, don't ask me to help with customers. I'm not writing policies. I'm not doing anything. I'm building this system. And I literally locked myself down on building out our CRM and our processes for like a year back when it was a startup and there wasn't a lot of help. So the tipping point was really fully covered and a little bit of exposure to like how this can be easier, because the tools I had from the captive side, they were just old and awful and they didn't help me. And that opened up my eyes to like, oh my gosh, this can be so much simpler. And I just ran with it and I got obsessed after that.
Yeah, CRM tools are, it's so interesting because no matter who, like, depending on who you talk to, everyone has a different CRM that they've fallen in love with, right? Like for you, Agency Zoom. Like I know for Joe Camper, he loves Ricochet, which I am not a fan of at all. I'm like, I liked Agency MVP when I used it for my agency, but before that, it was Velocify before they left insurance for real estate. Velocify was the best. Like you can't tell me any different. And so at what point did you like, because I mean we're kind of, we've already spoke about it, right? Accelerated automation is what you do now. It's a business you own. It's highly tied to Agency Zoom. That's kind of like the core foundation of what you started it off of, right?
Yeah.
And so at what point did you realize like Agency Zoom isn't just like a tool to grow my agency, but like this could just be another business for me?
That thought never occurred to me until it was too late. I'm not even kidding. So I am an oversharer. It's part of my personality. Ask anyone that works for me, they know way too much about me. And I also am just, I'm a really bad liar. So I don't lie because I always feel like I'm just going to mess it up anyways. I'm
That's a good girl in you from growing up on a farm with good
I was
parents.
raised Catholic, right? I have to answer for everything I do. So I don't lie. And I'm just a transparent person. I overshare. And in kind of all areas of my life, which is sometimes uncomfortable. And I catch myself having to stop doing that. But Agency Zoom was a good example of that. I was in all these, groups. I didn't do it publicly on my personal page because obviously I was using that to like a market for insurance. But in these groups of agents, I was telling people like about how awesome this tool was. And nobody had ever talked about a CRM in insurance before. My company definitely didn't talk about it. I'd never seen one, an insurance CRM. And so it was kind of this new thing. MVP, by the way, was kind of the one that was getting a hold on the farmers agents at the time. The founder actually got a hold of me and just, yeah, laid into me hard about recommending Agency Zoom. I didn't even know who this person was. So that was a great experience. But I never intended to do this as a job, you guys. Like I can wholeheartedly, honestly say, like, there was never a moment of like, oh, this could be a business. What happened was I was sharing and I'm like, oh, I can do this. I can do that. And like, I woke up this morning and 5 people texted me that they want to quote. Now I have 5 people to quote. And I'm so excited. Like, I was just purely excited for the results I was getting and I was sharing it. And so people started asking me for help. I was working pretty close with the founder because the system was so new. And so they were really shifting a lot. They were making changes, a lot of beta testing. And so I got in touch with Mo and I started working with him and giving feedback. And at one point, I remember telling him, I'm so sorry. I feel like such a jerk. I'm like picking apart your system. I feel so negative. He's like, no, 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 keep it coming. Well, it's been 7 years since he said that. And I've asked him before if he regretted it, but because I'm still, asking for them to make the system better all the time. So I was just sharing and people started asking me to help them. Can you help me with it? I can't figure this out. I can't figure that. How do you do this? How do you do that? And I would answer questions on social media because I just have that. Like I said, I used to want to be a doctor. I like to help people. It's really part of who I am. So I was answering questions. And then agents were like, could I pay you to set mine up? And I'm like, no, I have little kids. I have a business, like I don't have time for that. And I said no for months and months and months. And then Mo, the founder, asked me if I would help agents because they were a small startup. They were bursting at the seams for people that wanted help to learn the system. They didn't have enough like support agents. And I was like, no, I just don't have time. We had all these phone calls. Finally, I had just prayed about it a lot. And I was like, well, I feel like the Lord is opening this door. Maybe I need to walk through it. Let's see what happens. And kind of my little push was I wanted to hire a housekeeper. This sounds so silly, but
No, it's not. It's not. That's a lot of business coaches. That's like one of the first major hires they recommend. Go get a housekeeper.
I'm like the opposite of Martha Stewart, by the way, my poor husband. Like I'm very corporate, like or business minded as anyways. So I didn't want to clean my house. I've always hated that. I wanted a housekeeper. He didn't want it to affect our budget. And I was like, well, people have been asking me, it seems like this isn't going away. Maybe if I can like on the side help some people with their CRM, I'll make $500 a month and I'll pay for a housekeeper. And after that, and I took my first like test agency for free. Agency Zoom made some changes for me to make it a little easier. And I, ever since then, I've just been trying to keep up. Like literally, now we have 14 employees. We've helped over 1,000 agencies. I sold my agency 2 years ago because I could not balance both. I'm not one of those people who wants to work all the time, but I do have a tendency to do that. And I have kids. I don't want to miss their childhood. So I had to sell, I had to choose, which one. And like I mentioned, when I sold my first agency, I was already like a little disengaged with insurance. I wanted something more challenging and new and different. And this presents all of that. So I didn't look at Agency Zoom and think, oh, this could be a business. By the way, I didn't even know CRM consultants were a thing. I didn't know they were a thing until I heard about Go High Level. And they have all these, white labeled companies. And then I learned more about HubSpot and Salesforce. And there's these giant ecosystems of consultants that build these systems out. It's a very well established business industry. I just didn't know that. So we were building our model without knowing there was a model that we could have like learned from and plugged into. That's how it became a business, completely by accident.
Now I hear you on that. So that makes perfect sense. But when you leave from like one job to another, especially when you have kids, right? Married kids, it's really, really difficult to step aside from like a stable income, an established business, especially one that's was gifted to you, right? Like they gave you the book when you went back. What were some of the fears that you had like during that transition of like, I'm going 2 feet in, not one foot in, 1 foot out. We're going this direction. Like what fears did you have going into that and kind of stepping away from the agency for what was the second time?
Yeah, the agency represented like a very stable income when this shift happened. So what happened before that was, COVID. So COVID happened. We brought our kids home. That was a mess, of course. So I actually had accelerated automation, the early days of it, and my agency and my husband worked full time. And then we were homeschooling our kids. Like most people, your life was a disaster during COVID, right? It was like we just all want to pretend it didn't happen. And through that whole process, when the schools opened back up and we went to put our kids back in and they had been homeschooled and we put them in and there were some things that were happening in the public school system. And my husband and I, we pulled them back out. We pulled the kids back out. We were like, we don't want our kids in these environments. Like I mentioned before, counterculture, like the stuff that's happening in public schools, we just don't agree with. And we didn't want our kids raised in it. And we're very careful about who our kids spend time with because they're our everything. So we protect them. But what that meant is I was homeschooling my kids. I also had an insurance agency and I had accelerated automation and my husband had a very demanding, like very nice, like cushy 6-figure job. So we had no shortage of income. We had a shortage of time and our kids were being neglected, not intentionally. It's just one of these things that like life starts getting away from you.
Yeah.
And we looked back and we were like, this is not what we wanted. So my husband actually quit his job. So we made the very conscious decision. My husband had a company rig. He had all of our benefits. He had a lot of our income, more than half. And it was this decision of like, do we want safe and stable, which is what I grew up with, right? Get your union job, safe and stable. I saw my parents be miserable. By the way, my husband's family was exactly the same. His dad was in another union, hated his job for 35 years, right? Retired. Or do we bet on us? Do we bet on our businesses? And that's what we decided. And the great thing that I have going for me when it comes to entrepreneurship is my husband is all in. He has almost a stupid amount of faith in me. I've told him before, I'm like, I feel like you need to be a little bit more concerned, but he's just not. And, we met when we were teenagers. I was 17 when I met him. He was 19. We've been together for 21 years. And when he decided to quit his job, the goal was for him to homeschool the kids and me to pursue the businesses. And we had 90 days to make that work, to replace his income because I had to pay for health insurance and all these other expenses. We had to buy a car because he had a company car. It was a lot. So it was like 90 days. But this was the conversation I had with my husband. We're going to try it. Him and I had. If it doesn't work out, I guess we start over. It's just money. It's just stuff. Like all of it's replaceable. We don't take any of it with us, but we didn't want to live in any kind of regret or fear because we grew up with that in our households. Like the fear of failure kept our parents in jobs they hated. And that scared us more than anything, is just living in they weren't miserable. We were a happy family, but they hated their jobs every day they went, and they complained about them constantly. So we just took a gamble. We're like, well, 90 days, I guess if it doesn't work out, we file bankruptcy and start over. We move back in with our parents. Like, I don't know, we'll figure it out when we get there. And we just had faith. And I worked my butt off. I had both businesses. I had to buckle down. I mean, my kids had dad, but they did not have mom. Like, mom was there for dinner and that was about it. And that's what we did. And actually 2 months after that, my husband, praise God, got sober. My husband was an alcoholic for 10 years. So going through all of this, we also had that internally happening. And he's 3 years sober now, and he's a completely different man. But, you know, we were also dealing with that when we went through this transition. So when you say, like, you know, taking the risk and like making the jump, and I hear people that are afraid of doing these things, we had a lot working against us. And it's totally possible. It's also perfectly possible to fail. So you have to be very comfortable with failure. And we knew it wasn't going to, you know, take our family away. It wasn't going to destroy our marriage. Like, it was just going to maybe like take stuff away, and we'd be in debt for a while or something like that if we failed. And none of that really mattered that much to us.
Can I just say that, like, you said something that was literally the key to success that I think a lot of us do. And it's that we overthink like these decisions. And when you said, you know, we got 90 days to figure this out, and the worst that could happen is we lose some money and then we just go make more money and figure it out later, right? Like, it is literally that simple. If you're confident enough in your abilities and skill set, which he is confident in you, and I think you're confident obviously in yourself, you've already had the history of having success and being able to do it. I think that it's like, if more people just had that confidence and to realize, like, we overthink a lot of these things that are really kind of simple at its essence, like, a lot of people would have a lot more success and the fear would be gone. Like, the hardest part of being an entrepreneur is the first time you take the leap. Once
Mm-hmm.
you take that leap, it's so much easier to kind of just like make any decision you do from there on out, because that's the hardest part. And it's not even like a difficult thing, it's just a mental thing. So,
Yeah, I would say I definitely think it's both, because you have to, and I agree with you, like, it is very mental. And today, you know, like before we started recording, I was telling you how, like, last year we had a really difficult year at my company. We had some bad hires, and I hired a business coach who's helped us really straighten things out. And when I hired him, couldn't afford him, right? Making this
can we give them
investment.
a shout out?
Yeah, Mick Hunt is my business coach. He's phenomenal. He has, you know, the Lead Loud podcast, and he's an amazing leader. And that's who I signed up with, because I had to figure some stuff out, right? The insurance model is very different than like what we do. And again, we had to create our business model and products and services. So, but we had a really, really tough year. And there was conversations about, like, do you stop or do you keep going or whatever? But you get to this point where the ups and downs in business are just part of your life. Just like you have good days and bad days, you're going to have, you know, good weeks or months in business, and it's kind of riding the wave. Last year, there was times where, like, you know, I was on the floor in my bedroom crying, scared of failure. And my husband's like, it's fine. Who cares? Doesn't matter. You know, and there's a little bit of your pride that's attached to that. Like, if people watch me fail, but at the same time, like, who cares? You know, it's your life. They don't live your life. So you said that I have confidence in myself. You said that at one point. You know, I call my husband my emotional support husband, because he is the one who has the confidence for us. Like, I can execute and I can do these things. And I've been very blessed to be, you know, a little bit in like the right place at the right time, took advantage of an opportunity that was put in front of me. I didn't say no to it. So that was great. But he has been the one cheering me on the whole time. When, trust me, there's been plenty of times I've wanted to quit. There's that for all of us, because when you look at having a 40-hour week job, even if you don't really like it, it is a hell of a lot easier than this, than running a company. And there's been plenty of those moments, but it's a moment where you, like, you have it, you cry, or I cry, at least maybe you don't, but I cry and, you know, let it out. And then I'm like, back to work. And sometimes that's all within the same, like, 20 minutes. So it's, you know, we've all been there. If you own a business, it is not easy, but it is worth it. I would never go back. I think if I had to work for somebody else, I would be a really pain in the ass employee.
Yeah, yeah, it's tough. I've tried it once, and I mean, it
Did
was a
you?
great experience trying to do it, but I was like, yeah, it's not for me anymore. I'm too deep in. It's
Yeah,
too deep
it's
into the
hard.
entrepreneurship life of just being able to kind of create and do whatever it is you please and try to figure it out. I enjoy that part of it. But all right, so now that we know where you are with accelerated automation, what does accelerated automation actually do for insurance agencies that they can't figure out on their own? Like where do you step in the process? What are your services and products? Like how do you help agents when they can't figure things out?
Yeah, I used to answer this very differently and talk a lot about what we do in the CRM, but I've learned that that's not really what we deliver. Like what we deliver is standardization and processes. And that is the part that agents can't figure out on their own. Because can agents spend time learning a CRM and putting it together? Yes, of course. Like they're designed to be, you set it up yourself. But the part they can't figure out is like, what should it look like? What should the process be? And like trying to reinvent the wheel. I think this is a big misconception in our industry that every agency is a little bit different. I'll tell you, I've met with thousands of them over the last 7 years. We have just under 1,000 clients. While there may be small pieces, they're not all different. They're the same. Like you guys, we all sell the same products, auto and home. We deal with the same carriers. We have the same underwriting requirements. We get paid the same, billing. It's the same. They renew the same. That is not different. And there's so much misconception. Now, one agency might do only trucking or only commercial or only personal lines, or one agency might do personal, commercial, life, Medicare, health, trucking, whatever, all of it. Those are the differences. But whatever you're selling, it's the same model. Okay. So that is what I feel like agents just really struggle with standardizing. But the reason for that is because they're salespeople. We all got recruited into insurance because we were really good at sales. I know so many people who are car salesmen. They worked in banking, obviously a lot of multi-generational family agencies where the family members like started in the sales role. They learned to be producers and then they got the agencies because it is a sales organization. So people who are really sales minded really struggle with like structure and operations. It's a totally different personality. So what I've had to learn over the last 7 years is like the psychology behind the people that we work with. And I don't have any kind of degree in this or any background. It's just a lot of learned experience and a lot of reading books as to like why this is the way it is. But it's a different personality. And so that's the part they can't, and I say can't figure out because your brain doesn't work that way.
Yeah.
It just doesn't. And that's okay. There's nothing wrong with that. The best entrepreneurs are the ones who are really honest with themselves. They understand this is what I'm good at and this is what I'm really bad at. And they hire in the people that can fill in those roles, right? If you're great at sales and you want to sell, then do that if that's how you make the most money, and bring in people that'll do customer service or marketing or accounting or whatever. But don't pretend or try to force, the round peg into a square hole, that whole analogy. It's very true. So they could figure out their CRM for sure. Time, attention, focus. It's going to take a lot of time, but they can't figure out what it really actually should be structured like and then how to execute on that. And most of them don't have the time for the execution piece anyways.
Yeah. And that's like it's a 2 for 1, right? Like it takes a ton of your time away from what you do really well to try to learn and figure it out and build it. So that's time wasted. As a business owner, like obviously your most valuable asset is your time.
Yeah.
And so your money that you receive from your business is your tool, and your time is your most valuable asset. So you should be using your resources to go hire out things that make you more efficient. I mean, that's awesome. And I think you solved a really, really big problem, obviously, because now you have some copycats in the industry who are copying your model.
Yeah, when you prove a model, you're going to have more competition pop up. And I've always welcomed competition because we can't help everybody. There's 14 of us here. We're capped at a max of 30 agencies a month, which is a lot for a firm like mine. We've set up in a really well-structured way. We have a ton of tech here internally so that we can actually do that. My tech stack is like almost $7,000 a month. My team is all remote, but that's allows us to do the volume we can do. Most consulting firms or agencies like ours can handle 5 or 10 clients with the same type of staffing. So I have figured out the model really well. But the shoot, you said something and I wanted to go back on it. Oh, on your time. The book, The E-Myth, that was a book that I was recommended to read by the founder of Fully Covered, Nato. I always say his last name wrong, but I think it's like Gerardo. I know. I can never say it right. So just Nato. Anyways, but he was one of the first people that was like, hire a landscaper, hire a housekeeper. What can you pay per hour? How much can you make per hour when you do the very best things you can do. So it shifted my mindset into investment, into like working with people. So we've also hired consultants here. I have a business coach. I pay Mick a lot of money. He's not cheap, but and when again, it's one of these things, like I signed up with him, I'm like, oh, it's going to be a stretch for my budget, but it was an investment and it has paid off tenfold. I've also made bad investments. I've hired 2 consultants for our project management system that were a total flop. I hired a web developer and paid him $40,000 to build us a website with a learning course that I had to walk away from after 6 months of no progress and didn't get any money back. So when we talk about entrepreneurship and like investment, there is risk in everything we do. Some of the investments we make pay off and some of them don't. But that doesn't mean that we should stop either, because the ones that pay off really well. And that's how you become a better seasoned business owner, is understanding, okay, I should have seen that coming. Next time I'm going to do this differently. Right. So, I am a big believer in hiring out for what you're bad at, because otherwise you just always stay bad at it and your business never gets the benefit of somebody who would be good at it for you.
And my favorite part of that are the agents who like they know they're bad at something, but they're like, I'll just figure it out. I'm not going to hire someone. I'll figure it out. It's like, no, you're not,
So
because you
this
did
is
it.
a great, like, right now in all these social groups, there's so much topic about building your own tech tools with AI. And you guys, don't get me wrong, I'm so grateful that I got exposed to tech and this is my niche, but I am like 1% of insurance agents, right? That could make that transition. The people you see talking about this stuff on social media, they're also in like that 1% where they have a tech brain but happen to be in insurance. And that's great for them. And they are going to build some cool stuff, probably reduce their tech stack cost and get some neat custom tools. But that is not the 99%. If you're spending your time trying to build AI and learn how to code, your business is not getting the attention that it needs, because that's not what's going to grow your business, right? The tools are a small part of what your business needs. And the other thing to keep in mind with this stuff, I think that everyone discredits, is the maintenance of these tools. Building them is the easy part. That's really simple. Keeping it updated and supporting it so that the tool you built today in 2 years isn't like a relic, because that's how fast tech moves. That is a full-time job. So unless you're going to have a CTO, which we have agencies who have CTOs and they have a lot of in-house stuff, and some of them will have an in-house developer, great. That's a great structure for you. But that is not the majority, and it's a distraction. People that are sitting here trying to build stuff on Claude to replace their $50 a month software subscription, it is worth the $50. Just leave it alone and use that, because it's not going to get to the same place. And then it's not going to have that consistent improvement that a software company is constantly doing through R&D. So there are things that you just don't want to be distracted by. That's one thing Mick has really helped me with. Focus on what's important. We actually read in our book club at our company the book called The One Thing. It's about focusing on one thing, right? And doing that well. And then we just finished Start With Why, which is a great book as well. So there's so much distraction about like all the do-it-yourselfers, right? So there's a point where that's just not a good use of your time anymore.
Yeah. And at that point, you might as well just be an employee, because if you're just trying to do everything yourself, you're basically creating
You're
your own.
really stressful job. You're like the world's worst stressful job if you own a business and you're the only one in it. That's fine. Most of us start there for a while. Actually, just 2 weeks ago, I had a call with this gal. She was an office manager. She's been in insurance for 22 years. And she was like, I just thought it was time. So she went out on her own and she started her own agency. So she's 2 months in, and she was like, I have never worked so hard in my life. She's like, I had a very cush job. I checked on my team. I worked like 3 or 4 hours a day. She was salary, come and go as she pleased. She had that agency running phenomenally. She's like, I'm dealing with carrier appointments. Nobody pays me when I think they're going to. All of these things that were happening on the back end of the business that she wasn't experiencing as an office manager, that she didn't realize was happening. And she's second guessing herself. She's like, I don't know if at this stage of life, if this is what I want to do, because her whole life is this brand new agency and she's trying her fastest to replace herself, but she's still got like 3 to 5 years of just killing herself as a scratch agent. So she's considering going back. You got to know what you're like getting into, and if that's going to make sense for you.
And I have this conversation all the time, and if anyone's watching this and has seen enough of my videos, they've probably heard me say it a million times. But there are so many producers who think because they're good at producing at their little $2 million, that they're the top agent in their $2 million agency, that they can go run their own business and that they've been underpaid at the agency that they were at and that they could go own a business. It takes a lot to build an agency. It takes a lot. And you're not just producing, you're also servicing, you're managing, you're doing finance, you're chasing people down for money, you're trying to build relationships, you're also trying to sell, you're trying to
You're
follow.
hiring,
There are
you're
so
mentoring, you're firing. Like people forget about the HR part. You've got to know your state and local compliance and federal laws. You've got to keep your communication, your DNC, right? You've got to make sure breaks and lunches are done correctly. You've got to pay your taxes. Like
yeah,
it is not selling insurance. That's not
yeah,
what a business is. It's not selling any product when you're a business owner. It is
yeah,
a teeny little department within your organization.
yeah,
And I agree with you. And most insurance agents, that's how they got started.
yeah. So all right. So at this point, you're just under 1,000 agencies that you've worked with, right? Which is incredible for the type of work that you do. What are and I've worked with a lot of agencies too. What are some of the like most common inefficiencies that you see across the board when you deal with agents? And I know that we spoke a little bit about like not having SOPs and not having procedures and having that, but like there's always some sort of commonalities between agencies. What are the ones that you run into that you've noticed?
So there's a couple ways to like look at that. I would say from commonalities. So the lack of standardization is in 99% of the agencies that we talk to. There's very few that have actually standardized their business, which means you can measure it. If it's not standardized and you come to me and you say, we're losing clients like crazy, like our attrition rate is through the roof. I don't, I need to fix it. And I'm like, well, why do you think that is? They have no idea because there's no tracking. So you have to start there, right? That's why the standardization and the procedures matter because that tells you then what to go fix, what to pay your attention to. But the most common, I really think, with the agencies is because they come from these sales roles and roll into agency ownership, it's the confidence. It's the confidence to make decisions for your business, to tell your staff, this is how we're doing this. When they push back, well, I don't want to. I really like my notepad. I like paper. I had an agent in my agency that was like that. I had to fire her because she wouldn't use our technology. She only wanted to use paper, but all that data was unusable to me, just wasting data. Like I couldn't do anything with it. So I had to let her go. But having confidence in knowing what you're trying to build and what your goal is, and that you're making the right decisions and stand up for that. Don't let your staff push you around. That is the most common problem. It has nothing to do with operations. It is everything to do with the leader at the front who can't say, I've heard your feedback. I understand where you're coming from, but this is what we're doing and this is what I expect. And then actually creating a culture of accountability and enforcing that. They're so scared of losing employees. Oh, this person's been here for 5 years. If they leave, I mean, oh my gosh, just my whole business would fall apart. That is not true. Just know it's not true. If you feel that way, if you have this person in your business who is toxic and you cannot get your vision in your business because of this person, because they're in your way, get rid of them. I promise things will be better tomorrow. Will you have more work? Sure, that's fine. It's going to happen. Your team will take up more of that as well. And I promise you, they will all breathe a sigh of relief. I have done this in my own business twice. I have let go of 2 toxic employees who are actually top performers. Actually, I'm sorry, 3. 2 were sales, so top performers. The other one was a trainer who did an amazing job. But I had to let them go because of their toxic personality and their constant drama and stirring up. We mostly are women here, so I was called like the hen house, like stirring up the hen house. And you know who those people are, so have the confidence to make the decisions for your business that you know in your heart and your gut are right, but you're a little scared to like push it through and stand by your like decision. When you start doing that, everything gets better. Everything. And I've seen this in agencies. I've seen it in my own businesses. Seen it in my personal relationships. When you really like create your boundaries and stick to your guns, everything will get better and easier in your life.
100%. I agree. I couldn't have chosen a better answer if I were to answer that question myself than what you just gave. Like I've seen it happen so many times myself as well. I work with the agency in South Texas, and when I started working with them, they were pushing out like 150 items a month out of three locations. And the first thing I did was like, first off, if you're on paper, we're going into every office, we're removing paper out of every single agency. You're not writing any notes down. It's going to be done in the CRM. And if you don't know how to use a CRM, we're going to do a training and you're going to learn how to use it and you're going to
Yeah.
learn on the fly. And I was brought in as a consultant to that agency literally to help with these problems. And so we moved paper out. That was a huge issue, caused so much like anxiety between all the producers who were all doing their own things, some of them using the CRM, some of them not. And then they went from 150 items to 400 items over the course of the next 90 days. And it was like a month. It's a huge jump, you know? So it's, you know, also getting rid of like the toxic behavior and the toxic people, regardless of what their production is. Definitely, like I've seen it happen multiple times also where that toxic person's gone and everyone in the room goes, finally, fucking finally.
And those toxic people too, they lower your standards because whatever you accept in the business is what you're telling them you expect. So you are allowing it. And I've heard every excuse under the sun, Victor, I'm sure you have too, why you have to keep these people. And it never pans out. They always end up fired. It's
Yep.
just a matter of when. That's all it is. And how much grief you're going to let them put you and your team through, and how many of your actual good employees you're going to lose before you let that person go. So, you guys, if you're watching this, like, you have someone in your head who you're like, oh my God, they're talking about this person in my business. Call them and let them go. It is better for all of you. I actually just posted about this today that it is a freedom. That person is also miserable. They're miserable. They don't want you up their butt all the time about trying to change who they are and living in this toxic environment. Like, it is bad for everyone involved. You are not helping that employee by keeping them employed. You're hurting them. Release them to go back into the wild and find the right organization for them. And that will also help them challenge themselves to be a better employee next time, the next place they go. But it doesn't help anyone. You're not doing yourself or your customers or your employees or that employee any favors by holding on to the wrong people. It's very harmful.
100%. You hit that on the head. Now, okay. So, all right, back to accelerated automation. So, you help like optimize workflows, pipelines, integrations, right? Um, for any agents who are listening and maybe want to tighten up their own processes and their own systems, like what's one automation that you guys implement that consistently changes like or is the most impactful for that agency?
I would say the very first thing that you should automate is follow up. It's the easiest to do. You do have to have some copyright knowledge. And obviously, there's a lot of AI tools that can do that now. Please read whatever your AI puts out because some of it's still a little crazy. But follow up is the easiest. The average insurance agent follows up with a lead twice, and then you guys all blame the lead company. And I was with the same person. I bought leads for 6 months just to prove a process, but I didn't buy them prior to that ever in my agency. But at the end of the day, like, you need to make sure you're following up. It requires a lot of asks, a lot of check-ins. If you're buying leads or if you're talking to someone who's like shopping because of their renewal or whatever, they're talking to a lot of people, most likely. Remember that everybody has to have insurance. There's so many insurance agents out there. They have a lot of options. So you have to follow up. When you're persistent, we see a really drastic increase. So 35% on average increase in closing ratios just from implementing follow-up on your sales process. There's lots of other areas, but I would say that's the easiest and fastest to put in there. Even if you add 3 emails, like, you will be surprised at the lift you'll get because those 3 contact points never went out before.
So, what would you recommend? So, someone is not doing a ton of follow up. I think we know like if you don't close business on the first call closing is super important with internet leads because they're already price shopping. Chances are they're probably not going to price shop again because if they're being bombarded, they're like, I don't want to go through this experience again. So, you have a price shopper who's being bombarded by 3, 4, 5 other agents if you're purchasing internet leads. If you don't close that business on the first call, typically the sales cycle drowns out to about 45 to 60 days. I don't know what you're seeing on your end, but like that's kind of the baseline that I've always gone off of. If it doesn't close in the first call, you're going to be a 45 to 60 days sales cycle before you get that person again, assuming that you're consistently following up. How many touch points would you say a person should have for a new lead, whether it's text, email, and call?
Yeah. So the cadence that we have perfected that works really well for us is every day for the first 3 days. So text and email, you can do a combo of those things. Obviously, make sure that you can text them. There's a lot of regulations and rules around that. So be careful there. But at least every day for at least the first 3 days. And then we do every other day and we do it for 30 days. And we see a really large percentage of pickup between the 7th and 15th business day. So after they're actually like 2 weeks from shopping, everybody else dwindles out. Okay. And to your point, I actually agree with you that most people pick back up at about 60 days. Your phone starts ringing again because it's all the agents who are buying the age leads. So you want to be in the middle. That's the place to be. If they're getting bombarded and you weren't speed to lead contact, you're not first to quote and you couldn't get them, but it's 2 to 4 weeks after, even 2 to 6 weeks after, that is great. A lot of those clients don't take action, and we see a lot of people re-engage in the communications. So don't think that just because you can't reach them or that they're ghosting you or whatever, that they're not interested. A lot of times there's just too much happening. They'll put their phone on do not disturb. There's all these things. Internet leads, of course, always do have clear expectations. 1 to 3% close ratio is what you should expect. They are not going to be your biggest close ratio. They are a volume buy. But if you do go back and recycle, right, 3 months, 6 months, whatever, 12 months later, and keep hitting them up, that will create a lot of opportunity in the agency. So we keep all of our leads, it's like the opt out or die mentality. That's what we do.
Yep.
Again, be careful for compliance because you can't call and email someone forever, depending on like what kind of opt-in you get and things like that. There's a video on my YouTube channel actually for TCPA. We did it with a lawyer. So it's great advice, great information. So just be careful, but you can do email like forever, right? So you can do that forever. They can unsubscribe, always have your unsubscribe link in there so you don't end up with a low open rate. There's other things you can do for email marketing as well, but keep reaching out. The amount of low hanging fruit within your existing data is insane. And that's why, like Victor said, paper is not helpful to you. That quote sheet on your desk doesn't allow you to touch back again in 6 months, 12 months, 18, 3 years later and
Also
find
super, it's also super like non-compliant. Like if you don't have documented like that you could just pull up, you know what I mean? You need to have that compliance of having it in your system, at least making it easier for you to have it. Because Lord knows, if you're doing everything on paper, that it's gone. You're not finding it after a day.
In today's world of AI too, like it's really, and voice recordings, like recording calls, it's really not hard. It's easy. Like it's actually easier than writing paper notes because that whole transcript, that whole call, the summary, the call recording can be documented in your history right away if you've got the right tech set up. So you don't have to do anything extra.
Is that something that you offer at Accelerated Automation?
Yeah. So we work between software companies and users, and so we plug in integrations that don't exist. Like a really popular one is RingCentral and Agency Zoom, and unfortunately, the call recordings, are deleted after any days with RingCentral. They can show up in Agency Zoom, but you can't get the AI summary or the transcripts. And so we build a custom integration. We're actually working on a tool that will provide this without the custom integration, because the custom integration is a lot of labor, right? It's a lot of time to set it up for every agent. So we're building a tool instead because we've done it hundreds of times. And it's a game changer when agents have it, but it's not a native integration. So this is, goes back to CRMs and softwares and favorites and which one you like or don't like. There is no perfect platform. That's why everybody has an opinion of the one they like. But when I pick software, I want integration options, because if I can't have a perfect software but I want it to communicate with my other systems, I need the ability to integrate. So even if it's not perfect, if I can integrate, I can pretty much make it exactly what I want. So that's a big key piece of it. But yeah, we set that up for agents all the time. Appointment scheduling, document signatures, payments being done, updating your CRM, lead submissions, deck page collection, all of that can be done and set up, and we roll it out and train it and everything. So we do a lot of stuff, but at the end of the day, the benefit is standardization. You can track it. It's efficiency. It's follow-up. It's squeezing every opportunity out of the money you're already spending to acquire a customer. That's the biggest miss. You're just bleeding cash out of your business because of all of these inefficiencies.
I agree 100%. Now, so we're dealing a lot with creating processes, using tools, and building out pipelines, automations, all this great stuff into agencies. Insurance is a relationship-driven business. So how do you balance, or how do you help your clients balance the human touch aspect with the tech side?
Yeah, well, the tech side, if done well, isn't really visible to your customer, right? So most of this stuff, like when I talk about automating follow-up as your first call to action, it should look like you typed it. I don't like follow-up. I don't like emails that are in a sales campaign that are like HTML. They very obviously are mass produced and mass distributed. It should be conversational, and you should have a call to action. Think about, if you want to start at a great place, go look through all of your producers' emails that they've sent. Just click on their sent box and see what they're saying and make that your templates. You could start there because it's what they're saying anyways and see if people are responding to it. But first of all, keep it conversational. That's how you keep the human touch. The other thing is don't automate away like your advice. Okay, so there's a lot of AI. Voice AI is still one of the last things that we implement in agencies. There's a lot more to be put in place first because the whole goal of tech and automation, in my opinion, is to free up your people to have more people conversations, to actually connect with people, learn about their dog who, had an ingrown toenail and had to have surgery. And you call on Monday and say, hey, how did little Skippy's surgery go? And they're like, oh, you remembered. Like, that's the human experience. Your AI is never going to do that for you. Well, I don't, maybe it will, but not now. It doesn't do it now. So connect with people, relate to them. And I agree, insurance is a relationship business. I mean, the best and largest agencies we have, they don't have a lot of marketing budget because that business comes in. They have built reputation, social proof. They have built networks of people who trust them and respect them, and the business comes into them. And then they are responsible for writing it. But if you are spending your time typing in an accord, for the 15th time, and then 4 supplements because you quoted them with 4 carriers, and you have to hand type every single supplement, that doesn't build a relationship with a customer. It doesn't help you sell more. It is something that should be as automated as absolutely possible. So you're freed up to spend more time with people. I don't like technologies that take you away from people. I will also say, though, we live in a world of self-service. So you have to know what kind of customers you want, because if you want customers, like younger than me and Victor, you're going to need some self-service available because that's just the world we live in. Consumers are so used to that. So the ability to get to a certain point with service without human interaction is a good option, but it's never with the intent of replacing it. You always want to go human interaction first, and then you have those solutions if you can't get there. Let me give you an example. You're trying to schedule a meeting to do a life insurance discussion, right? You've called this person, they won't answer the phone. You've gone back and forth. They finally email you. You're back and forth. When do you want to come in? Can you come in at Friday at 2 or Monday at 1? Or, you're back and forth. Let me check my husband's schedule. Let me check my work schedule. Oh my God. Send them a stinking link. Send them a link. Hey, here's my schedule. Pick a time that works for you. Follow up to make sure they schedule. And when they schedule, and then you can go on. But then you can have conversations with 10 other people instead of one where you're just trying to pick a time to get together. That should be automated. That's just silly. So look at ways to maximize your time. That is my advice on technology, and that's how you build relationships.
I agree. I've seen some crazy stuff over the years where like people are just trying to automate their entire agency from A to Z, and I'm like, you're gonna struggle. One, a lot of the technology, especially on the voice AI side, just isn't there yet. Like no matter what, like if you're doing outbound or inbound for voice AI, people know. Like the voice AI is not that good yet overall. I'm sure there's probably a couple that are like pretty decent, but I had an agent that I was working with who was running ads, and he wanted us to run ads to an inbound AI bot, and the AI bot was botching every conversation, talking over the person, couldn't understand what they were saying, repeating the process over and over. And he's like, not getting any calls. I'm like, your bot's just not finishing anything because your bot is terrible, which we told you from the beginning it was.
Yeah, and bots need a lot of training. They really do, because there's so much that can happen in a conversation. I agree, it's not there. The only place I see voice AI really actually helping the customer experience and the relationship aspect is missed calls. So if you want to add voice AI and you're a heavy phone call agency, have an AI, I really encourage you to be upfront. I actually experienced this as a consumer. Our HVAC system turned off the other day. It was weird. So I had to call our HVAC company, and they had an answer AI. And I was like, oh, and it literally said, this is Robbie the robot. I answer the phone when the rest of the team is busy. Talk to me like a human. And if I can't help you, I'll transfer you to the next available employee or team member or whatever it said. And I'm like, okay, well, hi, Robbie. Like my HVAC system isn't working. I need someone to come out. We're a member there. Oh, well, you're a member? Great. Like that means we won't have to charge you a service call. Let me see who's available. Can you do this time or that time? And I'm like, yep. And the guy showed up. I was super impressed. Like that was a great usage of AI. I didn't need to talk to a person to schedule a meeting. I just didn't schedule an appointment, right, for service. But if I wanted to talk to somebody, I had an out. And I also knew that Robbie the robot answers when everyone else is busy. So we've done the same thing for our agencies. We've had a lot of agencies do that. People don't want to leave a voicemail. More and more people don't even listen to voicemails. It's not a thing. That's why your cell phone will text you your voicemail, because that way you can actually see it typed, because no one listens to it.
Yep.
I think that's a great place for voice AI if you need some help, but don't eliminate the front end people.
I agree. We do the same on ours. If we can't pick up a call, we have a bot that just picks up and says, "Hey, tell us what you need, and we'll call you right back." And we keep it at that. And then it's nice because it also leaves a note on the contact card.
Yep.
So, we get the email and all that, but I wouldn't trust it to go through an entire sales conversation. You know what I mean? And that's what I was dealing with. So maybe in the future, maybe it gets to that point, but at that point, like, what use would we be as owners if we just have bots that can handle everything? So
it's a little bit of a eerie world to think about, right? But
yeah,
I really do believe that there are people out there just like today who don't want to talk to you, and you should have the option for them to give you information and get a quote and not talk to you. And then there is just as many people who want to talk to you and feel and are looking for someone that they trust, that they can speak with. And so know what kind of customers you want. But in my opinion, if I was going to open an agency again, I would have both. I would want the option for both. There's enough technology and record keeping to make sure you're protecting your agency and all those things, even with people who are doing electronic transactions. Yesterday, we had quotamation in our team meeting, showing my team this solution where people can get real-time quotes on agents' websites. I think that's a must-have. You're going to need to be able to be as self-service as people want, with as much personalization as people want as well. So meet your customer where they are. But again, voice AI, it's the last thing we look at. Like, you don't have any standardization, you don't have any follow-up, you don't have any integration. Your team has 15 browsers open on your computer every day. Let's fix that first, and then we'll worry about voice AI.
yeah, no, I agree. Now so just to go back into accelerated automation and your relationship with agencies in which you've been there since basically the beginning. Because you're so deeply involved with Agency Zoom, I mean, like you said, you've basically done a ton of the beta testing. You've helped them kind of develop the product for what it is today. You do training, consulting with it. You've built a business off of the back of it. Like, what separates agencies that win using Agency Zoom versus those that struggle?
Gosh, I selfishly want to be like, only the people that work with us win, but that's not true. That's not true. And we've got competitors who are phenomenal companies. I know the owners of those organizations are well established and they know their stuff. There's options out there. What separates people is having a plan. Like, if you just open the CRM and start clicking around, and this is true of any system, right? Like, what is your goal with this platform? What do you want it to do? Okay, I need it to increase my closing ratio, or I need it to help me with retention, or I need it to organize premium audits because we're having all these problems. Like, whatever the issue is, what is the problem you're trying to solve? Talk to your team. What do they do today? Ask them, what don't you like? What's inefficient? What takes you forever? Diagnose it. When Agency Zoom launched Service Center, we beta tested that for a year and a half. And when they launched it, I asked my office manager, when I got to beta test it, what do you hate about your job when it comes to service? What's the number one thing? She's like, I hate calling on late payments. Just the bane of my existence. She's like, there's days I want to quit just because I have too many of those phone calls. So this is the first thing we did, is we automated the late payment process, right? But I talked to her about what she did, and I looked at the emails she sent, and I made a plan, and then we built it. And what we built wasn't what we stuck with forever. It was our first iteration, and then we saw how it tracked and we made adjustments. But the agencies that win with any software implementation, anything, doesn't matter if it's CRM, you've got to have a plan. You got to know what problem you're solving. You need to talk to the people who are doing the work, which hopefully, if you're the owner, that's not you. But if it is, that's fine. Take all that in and then make a plan to build it, implement it, test it, and then roll it out to your staff as the expectation. So this is called change management, right? That's the process. And there's people that's their whole job is change management, because it's not easy. But that is the difference. If you hodgepodge the crap of that thing together, you're going to end up with a system that is so confusing. You'll turn it all off. A lot of times you'll cancel it. You'll come back to it 2 or 3 years later. I mean, we've seen this over and over, because you know that the tool can do what you need, but you just don't know how to get it there. So slow down, make a plan, talk to your people, map it out, and then put it together in your system. That's what we do. If we're doing a custom project, we're meeting with you. Tell me what you do, what works, what doesn't, what systems do you have? We'll figure out what you're lacking. And then we map out the project. Here is the deliverables. Here is what we're going to do. Here is what's going to look like at the end and our goal. And then we go build it. And we're professionals at this. We can't do it like on a whim. I had a competitor tell an agent that they would build every ounce of this system out for them within 30 days and teach their staff how to use it in 30 days. And I said, I would never do that. You could write me a check for $1 million. I would never do that to your staff. They will all be pissed at you. They will want to quit. That's too much change too fast. It's too disruptive. And I would never make that kind of promise to you. It's not going to work. So they went there. They really wanted a very quick rollout. I'm going to check in with them in 30 days and see how it went. But, these things don't just happen overnight. Have a plan, gather the information, and then execute, hold your team accountable. That will win 1000% of the time. And you can apply that to anything in your business.
How many businesses do you think fail purely based on the fact that some business owners have so much ego that they don't trust their team enough to ask them for their opinions on what they need help with, what is working, what's not working, and then making decisions based off of that? Because you've mentioned it already a couple of times of like how you talk with your team and how so important it is to get that feedback from your team members. And that just makes me think about like how many agencies I've spoken to who just don't trust their team enough to do that. And for me, that's already like red flag. Like if you don't even trust the team you have in place, that's already not a good sign. And then I'm thinking about how many other agents operate like that, where it's like they feel like they are the only voice, the only reason, and the only decision making, and they don't take anyone else into accountability on their own teams.
So, what I would say is that identifies, like, that brings to life a level of emotional intelligence that doesn't exist in that leader. And we've all been there. Like, I'm not trying to be like judgmental or anything like that, like, because I was also that person where I thought like my way or the highway, right? And that's why I've hired business coaches, and that's why I've hired people to challenge me, and why I've had to, when my employees say, well, I don't, when we do it this way, this and that I don't like. And I used to be like, well, that's how I want it done. But now I say, okay, what would you do, and what would you do differently? What do you want to do? I want to do this. Okay, let's do it. See how it works. So you just have to get out of your own way. If you think that you have all the answers and that you've got the ego and your opinion is the only one that matters, good for you. You're going to live in that. You're going to live with the results of that. Because I'm going to tell you, like, you don't have all the answers, and it's impossible. And it's just like unfathomable to think that somebody could believe to your core that you know everything. And if you do, no one's going to convince you otherwise. You're not going to watch this and think, okay, I don't know everything. But if you have some emotional intelligence, if you have some wherewithal and you can reflect and be honest with yourself, you know that that's just not factually true. So if you did have all the answers, you would be the most wealthy person. You'd be Elon Musk, right? You'd have all the answers. Why are you struggling if you have all the answers? It's not possible, you guys. It's just not.
I got to clip that right there. The way you said it.
Serious though, like, if you have all the answers, why is your business in chaos? Why aren't you hitting your goals? Why aren't you making $1 billion a year? Because you don't. The facts show that you don't have all the answers. None of us do. You don't. I don't. The only one who has all the answers is Jesus Christ, and he's not here. So, that's all we have. Just have some humility. But if you ultimately look at the people around you and you're like, I would not value any of their opinions, then you have the wrong people working for you. So that's in one of those, decisions you have to make. Doesn't happen instantly. I have team members who started with no experience, who know more than I do now. And I regularly say on our team meetings, like, I feel like I'm quickly becoming the least valuable person in this company, but it's because I've given them freedom. I've given them decision-making power. We do a lot of, like I said, we have a book club, like we do a lot of professional development, personal development, a lot of open honesty, a lot of challenges to get people to keep growing. Like, you shouldn't stay where you are. And when you have a team like that, it's very easy to trust them because they make decisions and they prove themselves right. Mm-hmm. And as long as you're measuring it, right, you're tracking it, and then you're like, well, you were right. Well, you were right again. You were right again. One of our team members, her name is Perfect Kelly. Kelly never makes a mistake. It's crazy. Like, we should clone her. I wish I could clone her. It would be amazing. And every single person who ever works with Kelly tries to steal her away from me. Like, they all want to hire Kelly. She could write her own check because she's amazing. But that is because she has the freedom to do it. She has the ability to make decisions and prove herself right and prove me wrong. And I love being proved wrong. And if that bothers you as a business owner, get really comfortable with it and enjoy it, because that means not everything is reliant on you, and you can have a little freedom, which most of us don't have.
Yeah, I agree. Like your goal should always be like and this ties back to what you said earlier, right? Like, you want to hire people who are good at what you do bad. And so if you're hiring really good talent and you're giving them the autonomy to kind of just go out and do what they do really well, that you do really bad, you should not be putting them on a leash. Give them that autonomy to grow and build and make the business better. So, all right. So that ties into kind of my next question here. So you're constantly teaching not just other agents, but also your own staff, supporting, guiding others. How do you, Mariah Gates, personally like stay sharp and continue to have that fire lit under you to like keep growing and keep getting better, especially now as you are becoming the least valuable person in your organization, quote unquote, not
Yeah.
from my
From a
words.
day-to-day perspective, I definitely am. People ask me questions and I'm like, I don't know. You should ask Lily that question. She'll know the answer.
Oh, looks like we lost you.
So you said I'm becoming the least valuable person in my company. From the day-to-day perspective, I am the least valuable person. Like when I have to run a support call, or which is very, very rare, I feel a little bit bad because my team is in the day-to-day all day long. They're much more experts than I am. But how I stay sharp. So I do have a coach, right? Like I mentioned, I have a business coach. I actually believe that we all need that. There is, passion and there's consistency and dedication and all of these words that you can throw around, but we all have bad days. We're human, right? We just do. So habits and things like that can be great, but the things that help me stay motivated is really the feedback from our clients, because we collect testimonials and reviews. Like we ask our customers to do it. We don't incentivize that. We just ask them to do it. And when we get them, it keeps me very motivated because I see that what we're doing matters and it's making a difference. The other side of it is my team. I have team members who have been here for, 3 years now, and they have grown as people. Our last team meeting, we shut down once a month and have a team meeting, and two of my employees are hitting their weight loss goals. Has nothing to do with my company, but it has everything to do with them becoming better versions of themselves and reaching goals that they have never reached before, and feeling like they could, and stretching their own emotional intelligence and their professionalism and like their own drive and commitment. So when I see what I'm doing impacts people around me, that's what keeps me going. You guys, like most people don't get excited about like the widget they sell, right? Like I sell pens and I'm so passionate about pens. That's not really a thing. It's like, how does it impact people around you? And there's a reason for that. I believe that we were all created by the divine to help others. That is our whole purpose, to grow and multiply and help our communities and make the world a better place. And when you can do that through your career, maybe selling an auto insurance policy doesn't make you feel fulfilled in that moment, but you helped that customer. And when they need it, then it's there for them. But also as a business owner, you get to impact the people that work for you. It doesn't have to be just in selling more car insurance. You can help their relationship, their marriage, their professional goals. I have two team members that I let go. Well, they left, but it was because this is not their passion. And I'm the one who told them that. I was like, your heart is not in this. You should be doing something else. You're called to do something else. I've said Jesus and God, I believe that we all are here for a purpose. So help them develop their purpose and make their life better. That is what gives me fulfillment and excitement. Like standard operating procedures, I can geek out on that stuff, but it's not going to keep me motivated to drudge through being an entrepreneur. It's how I get to affect other people. That's what keeps me going.
And that's the perfect way to end this episode. I think that's beautiful. I think that's absolutely true. If I had a dollar for every time someone was in a job that they hated or was not like passionate about, and everything got better for them when they left, whether, obviously it doesn't have anything to do with your agency itself. They're just not passionate about it, right? So it just makes it easier to kind of do that. So with that being said, Mariah, thank you so much for being on this episode today. How can people get in contact with you and Accelerated Automation?
Yeah. So acceleratedautomation.net is our website. I am on all the social medias, so you can find us, track us down anywhere. That's the easiest way. And, I will just say, track us down, but I want you to know, like, we're not right for everybody either. So we're going to tell you that really fast. Like, we also don't like to waste anybody's time. So go on our website. You'll see if you go on there, you can't just like book a call. You have to give us a bunch of information because we actually have to make sure we're a good fit. So if you want to work with us, do that. If we're not a good fit, we will not waste your time. I promise. And there's a lot of other people too that can help you guys out. But looking for help is a great first step, and that's how you can find us.
Well, once again, thank you for taking your time to do this episode. I'm so excited, and I look forward
Appreciate you.
to
Thank you.
all your continued success.